Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meticulous Talks on this Saturday, December 4th evening. I am, as always, Cursed Chords, and tonight I have two special guests. You can go first, Grandpa.
Sure. I'm Grandpa's.
And I am eminently sensible.
Absolutely. Our two finalists who clashed just last week. Well, I guess you clashed 2 weeks ago, as far as recording goes. Once on stream. Yeah. But anyway, back tonight to finally settle this thing.
Yes, indeed. Playing live for your amusement.
That would be one way to end it. Probably not the best way to do it. No, these guys recorded earlier this week, and I thought that as a good way to end things off, we would dispense with all of the commentators guessing about what you guys' thoughts were during the match and why you sideboarded out certain cards or whatever, and just get it straight from the horse's mouth.
I see what you did there.
Of course.
So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to set the stage, in case anybody's watching this who missed the last time, this is Grand Final Part 2, because Grandpa's bested me the last time around. So since I was in the top bracket, I'm not totally out from there. I get a second try. So from this point on, whoever wins this 2 of 3 is the grand champion. Even though we are the players, we have no idea how this is going to turn out.
Nope. We're going in just as blind as everyone else, so this will be exciting to try and figure out what these two people were thinking.
Indeed. And honestly, we can jump right into it because there was an interesting decision made right off the start. In our first game, which was the adventure game, you decided to change up which deck you had been playing.
Yeah, so the first time around, if folks saw it, I played my Tempest in Adventure. This is kind of the slower combo deck that is based on action generators. In the last game, as in the one here, Grandpa's is playing the Chrysalis combo. So it is a very strong combo, and even though I won the last game with Tempest, I felt incredibly not confident after seeing Grandpa's, and in particular, a few tricks he had up his sleeve that I wasn't expecting, that got to kind of surprise everybody as they happened last stream. And after seeing those, I was well and truly spooked. So here we see Luna. Now, this is a Hot Wings variant, basically. It's Luna Pink. It is very fast aggro. We have seen it in the tournament once. I played this against Bugle. But it doesn't see quite as much play. Adventure is typically not the most aggro-friendly.
I think that'd be a fair thing to say, given what we've seen so far.
Yep.
Yeah, the Tempest and, well, not Tempest. The other ones are assorted purple-orange control decks, are all very strong, and so they are typically pretty good at shutting down aggro. But we know that Grandpa's is unlikely to play his purple-orange control because his combo is just very strong, and it's kind of the deck that I was betting he would play, and so I decided to open with this. Some of the reasons, it has a lot more permanent kill. I tried to use Fernando last game, and that wasn't as good, so this deck is devoted pink. I've got belly flop, I've got food fight. That's a lot of ways to take out the key combo pieces. Mm-hmm. But then, importantly, there's also friend-based Frighten. And the reason why that's a really big deal against this combo is because Cadence taxes events specifically, and the vote can completely turn off events. So being able to use a friend to disrupt the combo is a lot safer. So in the event that something goes very wrong, it is still possible to salvage it with 6 cards in the deck, both Rutherford and Spitfire.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the main reasons I played what I did. Just some sideboarding here. Trashed is not important. Now, Grandpa's does play resources that are valuable, but Trashed is not especially strong, robust resource removal. It is in a deck like Hot Wings to buy 1 turn that the deck needs to win because it just turns off resources very briefly. That is not at all useful in this match, so they're easy outs. I also took out 2 Discords. So Discord is a very important card generally in a deck like this. He can be really fast point acceleration by pulling Final Question out of my problem deck. That type of shenanigan is not as important in this matchup. I decided to keep in all 5 of my dilemmas rather than the Discords, because no matter what my problem is, it's going to be a heck of a lot better than Grandpa's problems. His problem deck is atrocious. So I just want to make sure that whenever I need to double, I can bring my own problem there. And whatever my problem is probably fine. And just 1 dilemma from there, and I'll have a fairly comfortable double.
Fairly comprehensively said. I would say that I sort of view this as a little bit of a race for you. Your objective is to get to 15 before the combo can fully assemble and go off. Did you view the game as you were going to try to go as fast as possible, or?
Right. So the story of aggro versus combo is almost always a drag race. You just have to go hyper fast, and hopefully your fast is fast enough. The reason why I was a little extra confident in Luna here is because she packs so much counterplay that I could expect to buy 1 to 2 turns if Grandpa's was on the cusp of being able to combo. So that is important because Grandpa's can actually combo by turn 8-ish if nothing spooky happens to him, and he has some counterplay. And so Luna could win by turn 8. Like, that's not inconceivable by any mean. But with devoted counterplay, like Party of 1 in the opponent's deck, I'm probably not going to have the option to win that quickly.
Now, I'm assuming you're counting that as turn 8, assuming nothing has happened in the first 7 turns of the game. No one has scored points. We haven't gained more than 3, because I will tell you right now, even with that, it's actually significantly faster.
That's fair. I'm just going by how quickly you've won against other aggro decks in the past.
Got it.
So
okay.
It's not quite your theoretical max.
Okay, got it. That's what I was trying to get clarification on.
Yep, makes sense.
Fair enough. Grandpa's, would you like to talk a little bit about how you approach this matchup with your deck?
Sure. I actually came to the same conclusion that Josh did here, actually, before our game started, looking at what the possible matchups could be and which decks were going to be favored. And even though I knew that he won with Tempest last time, I was actually suspecting that I was going to face Luna this time, primarily because of the same reasons he's talked about. Notably, among those, the fact that the deck packs so many non-event methods of disruption and also happens to run the belly flops in addition to the food fights. If this deck cannot keep Cadence on the field, or cannot leverage Cadence's tax to slow down opposing aggro decks enough to stall for the time, then it's very likely that a fast aggro deck like Luna Pink aggro is going to be able to outrace it. That being said, given that I needed to run 3 miss mains for consistency in this combo list, and therefore had to rely on photo finish in the Tempest orange-white control list, I knew that matchup, while I could stall for time, it was likely to be very, very challenging for me to actually close out the game. Photo finish would almost never stick around without me having to unfrighten her, and she'd probably be dismissed anyway, as would most of my other friends, forcing me to school shutdown over and over again, and that just doesn't really get anywhere.
Yeah, if we had seen that matchup, well, if you had won it, it might have taken up a pretty good chunk of the clock, probably.
Right. That being said, there's definitely still some value here. Bluna is one of those decks that usually relies on playing a lot of its friends, at least a friend every turn that it wants to try to push aggressively versus just moving existing cards in play because it doesn't have the most efficient ways of doing so. So Cadence at least can be a source of card advantage. And obviously getting a Cadence out early does make her vulnerable, but also makes it more likely that I'm going to draw into other combo pieces I might not necessarily have in hand, or might cause Josh to use some of his disruption earlier so I have less to worry about when I'm actually ready to combo off. The most challenging thing here is because this is a new combo deck, because there's a lot of lines to get to the final end goal, which is get the Cadence and the Angel Wings and the Heartfelt Apology going, the math can be quite tricky. And this is made more complicated by the fact that I chose to leave in all 3 copies of the vote, not only because Josh has the full rack of belly flops and food fights, but also because vote can serve as one of the cheapest ways of getting the heartfelt thing going by using that as a mode of scoring points as long as I have fewer points than my opponent.
It's true.
Which is a safe bet against aggro, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm often very impressed by the way these combo engines are built that usually have multiple ways to take advantage of the key pieces to get things moving.
This was especially a nice match with the main in particular, because I'm, with all likelihood, going to be able to flip my main early on in this game, and that's not something that happened at really any other point throughout this tournament. Every other match that I played against was against a main who could play and choose not to flip, or in Smithers' case, the exact same thing that happened here, which is a Balloona that has to flip for the deck to work.
Mm-hmm.
The most key card for me, I agree with you here, outside of the combo, is Rarity Soprano, as Soprano is going to be one of the only methods I'm going to have of removing non-event disruption off of the threat table. However, there's just so much between the Rutherfords and the Spitfires and the other 6 events that I need to be very careful when I go off and try to protect myself through as many ways as possible. Hope my opponent doesn't have enough cards in hand to have multiple answers and maybe skip the Soprano, or run the Soprano and take the risk that I'm forced to force my opponent to discard a card that they might not have even needed and potentially draw into something that would be better.
Absolutely. Well, just quickly to address Prism Light's question here in the chat about whether Cadence can deck you out, I just want to confirm her draw is optional, right?
Her draw is optional, yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, receiving some smack. Bugle is betting on Grandpa's here. Let's see if I can prove him wrong.
Let's take a look.
Yeah. Just as a reminder to the chat, we're going to be watching this one sped up to a fair degree, more than the ones we've had before, but
you'll probably see why.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Here we go. Start of turn. I will draw a card with Royal Breakfast.
Okay, so we've taken mulligans at this point. I'm very happy with my hand here. We've got already belly flop and Spitfire, so I feel safe that even if I don't get good draws for the rest of the game, I can still protect myself for the next little while.
Yep. And I'm looking at a hand with a lot of disruption early, knowing that I'm going to choose pink and white on Cadence when she flips to have the rec for Heartfelt, which is also giving me the rec for Make This Castle a Home. And provided that I can get another friend out in play or find a piece of entry, can definitely lead to Pinkie Pie Every Pony's PFF. Okay. My game plan here early is going to be to try to slow down Balloona as much as possible, knowing that a single plushie dash is going to be enough to cause a DFO. So attacking entry is normally a good option against aggro decks. Against Hot Wings, specifically Balloona Pink, it's usually one of the worst decks to do it against because it runs so many friends for entry versus any other card type.
Mm-hmm. We see 2 more of them in Josh's hand already. So he's going to be able to weather 1 more Make This Castle easily enough.
Yeah, so we see here, I took a hand that started with 2 entry, and I already
Another one.
top decked 1.
Okay.
So pretty good
Welcome
luck
back to
for
you.
what we see as
Okay.
Grandpa's line of play here.
Yeah. That being said, trading 1 AT in a card for an opponent's entry piece, which are all 2 action tokens
It
and
was
a
funny the
card,
first time.
against a deck that needs to try to save its action tokens, I'm happy
The
doing
actions
early.
draw.
Yeah, the tempo hit is definitely pretty significant.
I'll go for a
Yeah,
Holiday Spirit.
and it's
Take a
worth
pass back to you.
noting that Grandpa's deck needs more cards than actions, so even just stalling is fairly good. Here's another top decked entry friend for me, just in case
Interesting.
Grandpa's does something like top deck a third, make this castle a home.
Yeah, this was a series of interesting top decks early on. 3rd time's the charm.
Wow. All right. I can dig it.
Spend 1 action token to draw a card.
So at this point, right, obviously things are looking
games again.
fine for me because what would typically be a crushing strategy didn't
Reactions
break
turn.
me, but I still feel pretty unhappy about
Well, I don't like it as much
the
this time. Here's a
total
good dose of
amount of
laughter.
time that is being
Uh,
wasted here.
I'll take a point. Back
Um,
to you.
Okay.
At this point, I have seen, I
Agree.
believe,
Next turn, you tell
5
me
of
you're holding
my
party
entry
of ones, and your strategy
out
is
of
color
9 in the
blocking.
deck. So I know my luck is
I mean,
about to end,
it
and
could
I
be,
need
right?
to be very considerate
good.
about how I use my entry in the rest of the game because
Though I don't have any
Grandpa's
friends, so I can't
is
color
pretty
lock you right
close
now.
if I
What
do
you want me
something
to do if I
silly
have
to just
Yeah, just
color
wait.
locking me, and then it's over.
Now I've got an interesting opportunity here where I can play Cadence with the only, in fact, 0 threats from Josh this turn. Through redeeming qualities, which I've got in hand, and the Cadence, which I paid
Okay.
to draw last turn so I'd be in excess of hand limit to discard. Cadence will tax events, so Belly Flop and Food Fight couldn't hit with the 2 action tokens remaining. He doesn't have 4 rec to play Rutherford, and Spitfire costs 3. So I'm guaranteed to get at least 1 card out of Cadence if I choose to bring her back this turn.
I definitely
would-
do remember
Sure.
thinking that
I will
this is
pass
what
this
you were going to
discarding
do
another Cadence.
there.
That being said,
Okay.
I wasn't going to be able to
Reactions.
really capitalize on it
Card.
that much. And I was banking on the fact that if Josh wanted to play the plushie dash now to get off of the starting problems, like he mentioned earlier, my problem deck is pretty abysmal for him.
Yep, fair enough. And you can always get Cadence later.
Yep. It is nice going against the Bluna Pink variant compared to Mono Blue in that there is far less of a likelihood of running into action token disruption through uneven ground or stuck together. So that's not something I have to worry about in this game like I did with Smithers.
Yeah, I play neither of those, so he's totally safe from it. So at this point, for me, my issue is pretty much pink entry. I cannot play any of the pink cards in my hand except for Spitfire. Now, Spitfire is the most important one, but I also can't play Rutherford, so things are actually a little bit tenuous
go score
until
phase.
I get more
Take a point.
pink
Back to
on
you.
the board.
Okay.
However, I'm not in a position to double because I'm not holding a plushie dash. So I basically don't want to do anything at all. I'm hoping to play my next pink friend so that I can get entry down. But just playing a friend while I'm already confronting is pretty much a total waste as Luna.
Yeah, and you are still confronting each point, which is
Thank you.
another tick along the road to 15.
The vote here is a nice draw for that reason I mentioned earlier. It is a method of getting a heartfelt trigger without necessarily having the miss main immediately. This means that I could double dip on PFF by using PFF to find Soren, retire PFF to Soren, play heartfelt, play the vote, get back PFF after scoring a point to find a miss main, retire that, and get the combo off that way for several more action tokens than it would normally take. Redeeming quality. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
several
so-
fewer.
So at this point, we're looking at
I will, in response,
what cards you still need, GP.
play Spitfire.
So at this point, I need a retire engine
will
and 2
draw.
copies of Miss Main.
Yep, that's it.
And-
Because you just were given blue
Flop.
entry from
Stopping
redeeming
for real.
qualities.
And
Take Frightened Cadence.
PFF is one of those things.
I will trigger Cadence's ability.
So as Cadence comes down, I just went ahead and immediately used Spitfire. Yeah, I believe that was still on GP's turn because I didn't want him to play any friends at the cost benefit, and I also didn't want him to have blue entry if it could be
Fire
helped.
doesn't hit the discard.
It sure doesn't. Pay 2. Unfrightened Cadence. The party of one may not get tremendous value here, but again, I'm trying to play the color entry denial game as much as I can, and now that I had a friend in play, I could play party of one safely without leaving Josh with anything. Just hoping that he hadn't drawn some of the, is it 10, 11 pink entry in the deck?
It's 9.
It's
no,
9. Okay.
I drew
When you're right,
an
you're right. That's what I
outrageous
say.
amount for this game.
Did have the PO1. Okay.
So at this point, I cannot play anything in my deck besides Tyrix Reign of Terror, except for the entry, of course. So it's really a question of how at risk do I think this entry is if I put it down? Now the answer is not very, because
1 for trap.
the
cards
cards that GP has to kill are Party of One, which there's 1 left in the deck, and Make
5
This
cards in
Castle a
hand.
Home, which there's 0 left in the deck. So me putting down a single entry is pretty safe. At least for now. Once I get a few more friends, I need to really start worrying about
Sure,
the second
that's fine.
Party of One.
The nice thing is that removal does come in the form of banishment, so if I do need to try to get any of it back, which I almost certainly will,
Head to score phase.
by using Mistmane,
Error.
I don't have to worry about Josh
Right.
getting back one of those cards that I've previously banished, because they're not in the discard pile.
Oh,
I
right,
do,
actually.
however,
Yep.
have to worry about him getting back the numerous removal tools he has, which I don't necessarily want to see in his hand.
Unfortunately for you, Grandpa's, all those Cadence draws got you no closer to your combo.
Sure didn't. PFF, Mistmane, anything would have been useful. The vote is fine, but again, not doing a whole lot here. The additional redeeming qualities is not bad to have, knowing there's another Cadence in the discard pile as well. At this point, I'm just trying to leverage a resource advantage between action tokens and cards in hand, and at least in the cards in hand, I'm doing okay.
And worth noting, I have no method at present to play that yak in my hand. So I cannot remediate.
Either of them, actually. Yeah.
Oh, I have 2 yaks. Honorary and otherwise. Good point.
That yak is actually a card I forgot about early in this game. I wonder if I'll remember it later.
All right.
Now the line of
Sorry, go ahead.
The line of play here is pretty straightforward for me as I'm just weighing the options. I can't really do a whole lot to gain a lot of value off of using Cadence for her benefit this turn, because it's going to cost me 2 to unfrighten her. But at the very least, I can get the T-Rex Reign of Terror out of here, send all of Josh's characters back home, and make it a little more expensive to DFO the next turn. To move Cadence?
Sure.
Yeah, because I have just been camping one problem the whole game, and that's been good enough. And that being T-Rex Reign of Terror is just very oppressive. It means that Grandpa's really doesn't want to ever have
Wouldn't mind
unfrightened
that
friends
card,
on the
but,
board,
Definitely
which
take the point.
he does want to have an unfrightened Cadence on the board, very much so.
Mhm.
So just getting rid of it
End of turn.
is good on its own.
Sure.
And then exactly as he said,
Skill and talent.
now if I want to
Where's the
DFO,
middle?
I have to go back to that 8 that Grandpa's has.
Losing that retire outlet to the flip was unfortunate, though.
4 actions.
It was.
Card.
I would have ended up discarding it to
technically,
hand limit
I don't
anyway,
I
but
missed the trigger. It doesn't do anything.
it
so it
is
doesn't matter.
slightly unfortunate to have lost that. Discarding the stolen talent here obviously makes sense because it means that
Ooh, I am not lean.
I'm going to be relying on just having
Okay.
Cadence herself in play.
2, 3,
If
4,
stolen talent
four,
gets
five,
frightened,
five
I've
Cadence.
lost a Cadence forever, and I don't have any draw cards. The food
Yeah,
fight
good
comes
point.
down though.
NGO. Take a point.
Yeah,
Come back.
so the Night Glider was the only way I could start confronting here, and I decided do food fight first so that I'm not generating card debt by giving Grandpa's actions, not actions, cards by playing actions. So get rid of the Cadence before I do anything else, because I'm going to get rid of the Cadence eventually. And so even if this isn't the most convenient time, because I don't get to hold any actions for the next turn, just get rid of Cadence before you do anything, because It's a little insidious. You don't necessarily immediately see the impact of giving your opponent free draws, but in a match like this, there's a huge impact.
I mean, sure, we've already been through at least, 3 cadence draws, if not more, so far this game. They didn't lead me anywhere, but they did make every draw after it that much better.
Exactly. Eventually, you're going to have all the combo pieces, and once you have all the combo pieces, it's over in very few actions.
Just one more moment if you don't mind.
Don't mind at all.
So, you having a long think here, Grandpa's?
A lot of what I'm thinking about is whether or not it's worth going for the redeeming qualities to bring cadence back, knowing Josh has no immediate response, and calculating if there's a way to get value out of make this castle a home to banish the Night Glider. So the line of play here would be 3 for redeeming qualities, 1 to play PFF to search for Mistmane, 1 to play Angel Wings, leaving me at 1 action token, 0 to play Mistmane, get back, make this castle. Josh also gets back a card, which is unfortunate, and then I make this castle Night Glider. Discard?
Yeah, so kind of a
No.
hyper complex line of play there, and things like that are exactly why I want to be holding actions so that I can frighten cadence, not at the start of my turn, but immediately.
Okay. 4 actions. Draw a card.
I'm also weighing the consequence of letting Night Glider sit on the field for another turn, knowing that Josh would need 3 power in addition to what's already in play over at Royal Breakfast. I felt pretty safe that I was not going to lose the game in a single turn if I chose not to mess with the Night Glider.
Yeah, for just counting up the points, if it were to say a plus you dash or something, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, it wouldn't be a game loss.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm very happy to see that Angel Wings because it's entry. Rutherford is an amazing card, but I need to have blue entry. So Night Glider has a big old target painted on her head.
Think about
So I know that that blue entry is a little tenuous.
weird game.
Angel Wings is pink entry and blue entry. So I have the option here of playing Yak, which is the first time pretty much all game for me to play the Yak.
And that Yak, if you did play it, is going to net you a draw 6, isn't it?
Yeah, since I would need the Angel Wings, and I'd have 2 actions to spare if I needed to pull
weird.
off any additional shenanigans from there.
2 for an Angel Wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty huge.
Then just straight into 2 for a Yak. Or sorry, 2 minus 2, so nothing for the Yak.
Sure.
Drawing 6, right? Yeah.
Does mean playing a hasty card
And
without
maybe
getting
some
your
of them aren't garbage. But we'll
DFO
never
with
know.
it.
Then I'll just
Yeah.
But
back to you.
you draw a good number of hasty replacements.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I could have doubled here, technically, but because I just got entry for Rutherford, I want to keep myself defended. I find that more important than getting points as quickly as possible here.
Absolutely makes sense. If you had not kept yourself defended with the Rutherford in hand, it's very likely I could have won this turn,
Exactly.
which is exactly what I'm considering right now. Again, the draws have been absolute trash for the last several turns, but hey, they're getting deeper, and having 3 copies of the vote means if I have enough action tokens, I can guarantee the event protection at least, although in this case it wouldn't matter because Cadence's tax would be enough, and then use the other 2 copies of the vote as pseudo Mistmane effects.
Yeah, a lot of votes gives a lot of options. The frighten mode of the card is not very important in the Luna matchup because my cards typically don't generate much value on the board. But both other modes are hugely important. Friends are kind of more intimidating than the events I hold because of Cadence's inherent tax. But if I ever have the leeway, I will definitely be holding enough actions to hit Cadence with a food fight or a belly flop.
Here is this.
All right. So why Soprano now?
I need to Soprano now to determine if my opponent is going to have enough hasty ways, either another Night Glider that would allow him to win the game on the next turn, or a 3-power hasty friend such that he could also cause the I'm sorry, another piece of removal like Rutherford or Spitfire that would allow him to disrupt the cadence.
Mhm.
I don't want to necessarily redeeming qualities cadence if it's going to go right into a Rutherford and set up for
Okay, well, first I draw, then I think.
Josh having the win. In this case, I'm going for Plushie Dash.
And I draw into a Spitfire, which is very nice.
Yeah, that was the exact situation I was afraid of early before the game started.
Yep.
Looking back on this now, the right thing to do almost certainly would have been to go, well, and see, now I'm trying to figure it out. Having played the Soprano and going down to 8 action tokens, if I redeeming qualities, I'm very likely to see the Rutherford come down on the cadence immediately. Then I could unfrighten cadence, bringing me to 3, and do the PFF mismain to get back a card thing.
Mhm.
However, that's only going to let me deal with Night Glider. What I really would have rather had is a mismain so that I can bring back Party of One. But I'm a little shy of being able to do that now that I've played the Soprano, but I also would have needed the wreck off of Soprano to play PFF to find that mismain.
So at this point, a spectator may think that Grandpa's is taking time thinking here. That's not right. I am asking everybody to stop so that the aggro player can think about all the hidden meanings in Grandpa's playing
Oh boy,
a
this
Soprano.
is a risk. This is a risk you are
The
making
issue
me
here
take.
is that
Mr.
the last
Paws.
time that Grandpa's played a single friend,
All right,
it was to
2.
open up Party of One.
Transform the sea pony.
So what I'm doing here
Sure.
is it's quite expensive, but I am getting rid of my one entry from the board back into my hand.
Okay.
I have no interest in this sea pony at all. The effect of putting her down or moving my main, they aren't really relevant to me. I just want the entry back in my hand in case Grandpa's already had the Party
Hopefully
of
that
One.
means I made the
Because
right call.
as he was saying, Grandpa's is considering like using Mistmain to dig for Party of One. Party of One would be really impactful here. So I'm taking a big risk here to basically, I'm losing actions and potential later down the line just to hedge against the possibility that Grandpa's could color lock me here, which would be devastating.
It's a good bet because, like I mentioned earlier, it was the primary line I was considering. How many action tokens and cards do I need to spend in order to get that Party of One out of my discard pile and play it again? And now, by transforming his entry pinky immediately, he's shut off that line of play from being super relevant.
Yeah, I can let the chat in on a little spoiler that we are entering into a period of very intense jockeying, shall we say, between the players.
Sure.
Almost absurd.
It definitely does get absurd. At this point, I decide I've got to try to get value, and I know I can at least get Cadence's discount on a few things here. So I might as well go redeeming and try to push Josh off of these problems.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty darn important that you win this single face-off that you're starting as well, right?
It is important, but given that everything's going to be at home and I know what my problems are in the deck, I just have to hope I don't flip into a Trading Traditions, or the next worst case would be Mystery at Hope Hollow.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, I opened myself up to a single here by playing the Joyous Sea Pony and moving Luna. The reason I did that was mostly I didn't think about it very hard. Basically, either Grandpa's could try to single me at my problem or his. Very debatable which one is better for me, but this way, at least potentially, if Grandpa's doesn't DFO, which would be unlikely here, I at least get to keep Night Glider up at a problem, which is beneficial because that keeps more points on my board.
Now, I might still be considering that Angel Wings Mismain make a castle a home line here. I'll grab Soren.
Yeah, with a deck like this, as soon as Cadence hits the board, just so many lines of play open up.
Yeah.
Grandpas can do all sorts of things that I can't really predict beforehand.
The Sorin here is useful because it's going to set me up for the Heartfelt Apology vote interaction on a future turn. And if I just go for Mistmane, I don't necessarily have a way of retiring her short of home limit, which can be expensive to get back. And this just gives me the ability, or I'm sorry, of retiring PFF short of doing it to home limit, which might still leave Mistmane in play, which is not ideal. So I really want to sit there
easy to
and
confront high point problem in your deck.
sure would be nice. Have a method of getting PFF into my discard pile as soon as
what I was looking
possible.
for.
I will trigger that and draw a card. And figuring out friendship is a great problem flip here. Pass the turn.
Yeah, so before we flipped, I joked that I hoped it was easy to confront and high bonus points. Those don't exist in Grandpa's deck. The closest is, as he said, like Trading Traditions, which is at least easy to confront. They're mostly garbage, and this one is certainly garbage. A 10 is really hard to confront, so I'm definitely going to be looking towards a dilemma. I do have one. It's not typically as useful as T-Rex Reign of Terror here, because it's just harder to confront, and it doesn't have the added bonus of frightening. And at this point, Grandpa's has built a board. He would like to have at least Cadence and Sorin. So basically as much frighten as I can get,
This kid is close to going off.
I would like. However, Jest does have
to
benefits.
You aren't there yet.
In particular, I can cycle
for an
my
angry
own
yak.
problem deck
Okay.
Luna,
because
Frightening Cadence.
currently there's only
Card from Cadence.
1 bonus point on the board, but I've got 4 problems with 2 bonus points on the board.
This is a trick that Josh has used before in
One
games
flop.
that we've played against each other as far back as Continentals 2017, if I remember
Oh my
correctly.
God, I love Jest so much. Yes, back then it was
Pointing back to
into
you.
Fire When Ready for 5 points because that's busted.
Okay.
Um,
Now we're more limited to 2, but it's
Yeah.
still a line that I know he's thinking about, and almost certainly the primary reason why he's included it in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, in the deck generally, it's for farm, but in this matchup over Discord, it is specifically so that I can cycle my problems. Also because probably a 7 is still easier to confront than anything you brought on your side.
Absolutely.
Vast majority of them, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a mean person.
Or
on
at
this side.
least as easy. So
Yeah. So I guess I kind of talked over what I did
Yeah.
there, but it can be
I'm the
summarized
monster
pretty
here.
quickly.
Definitely.
First thing I did right immediately is Rutherford, because
No
before
doubt.
I start playing anything, I need to turn off Cadence. But then, hey, I've already got kill in my hand. So once I turn off Cadence's event tax, let's just use an event, take her out. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch where I could have done it with a single card instead. But it saves actions. I was going to need to play a friend eventually in order to move Luna up. Because I need to grind. This whole game has just been single point grinding. There has not been a double yet.
Yeah.
Nope.
Bugle does point out that at least by the math that currently stands, if Grandpa's were to just pass here, then Josh would have the win.
Play a copy of
But of course, you're not going to pass.
nothing because I need to think about
Yeah,
something
so
else here.
there are points
Play
on
copy of
board
nothing.
to win because there's
No response.
2 from the double confront, 1 bonus point, 2 Night Glider points. So in theory, it is doable here. Now, the things that
Retire
it's
my
important that
Returns PFF.
Grandpa's deck is so full of so many combo pieces that he doesn't have a lot of ways to stop me on my turn.
Now let's play the
um,
Wonderbolts route to draw 2 cards.
But before that happens, if he gets something like, make this castle a home to take out Night Glider, or his other party of 1, then he can hamstring me to the point where I would be nowhere close to winning next turn. And I might be 3 turns away if he does something sufficiently devastating.
That Mistmane was a huge draw here, as it's going to allow me to do basically everything I wanted within this turn, which is kick Josh off of a problem and remove the threat that Night Glider presents by playing Angel Wings into Mistmane and either one of those 2 friends triggering my copied ability of Luna on Changeling Pretender, using Mistmane to get back, make a castle, and banish the Night Glider. Josh is still confronting with Bluna and Rutherford, but I'll be at 7 power. I'm far more likely to win that face-off, and now all his characters are home again. This is still risky, though, because I can easily end up putting him with a final question in play.
Right. So if a final question comes out, that gives me 2 points
Angeling.
basically for free, right? If Grandpa's causes it to flip, he doesn't have time to confront it before I do.
Miss me?
So all I need to do is confront, which Grandpa's does not have a lot of ways to stop me from confronting on
might as
my
well.
turn. It's
Although,
only
I guess you just
Soprano,
lose.
which is
I sure do.
complicated. There are asterisks there. So if
Well,
final
that's
questions
excellent.
come out, it goes back to there being points on board for me to win the game.
Well,
Next
knowing
turn.
that, let me think some more. Oh my lord, of course you did.
And I'm also going to be triggering.
So,
Change the protection
at this
for
point,
Yeah.
So,
Mistmain, I can follow to
Yes,
get a
technically-
card back. It gives
technically I
Grandpa's a
should have to wait
point,
until you
but
think
he's a
about it,
combo
but
deck.
I'm
Points
assuming
don't
probably
matter,
something
so I
like
will
that.
definitely take
Yes,
something.
I highly doubt that move is contingent on
Um,
my decision here.
But now I know that he has taken Make This Castle a
Yeah, no
home
two
to
ways
get rid of
slice it
my
is
Night
the best
Glider,
call, so I'll take it, even
obviously.
if it doesn't help at all in this case.
Okay, that's fair. I'll score 2.
I can't get any point acceleration
Yeah,
back
you're
into
right.
my hand. There's
Yeah, you
just
do.
nothing in the
Come on, top
discard that
deck.
would do it.
Gotta do it.
But Swinging Wonders is huge. Grandpa's used Soprano to get rid of
Okay,
them
score phase.
earlier.
Yep.
So
Fine.
obviously it's a
Final
good card.
question.
We both know, even if
Well,
there's no
I'm
immediate
dreading the
use
final
case,
question. I know
it's
it's
gonna
coming.
come in handy.
That's yours.
So
Please no.
I just
Please no
pulled
final
it,
question.
even though I didn't have
He
anything
deserves it, but
necessarily
please no.
for it right now.
Okay.
It is not final question. So this is Nightmare Night What a Fright, which doesn't see,
Okay.
hasn't been a relevant card
Four
in a while
actions.
because
One
adventure
more chance
hasn't
to
been a
top deck Night
thing
Glider.
before. If
I'll never
there
tell.
is a face-off and it gets replaced, I would get 1 Frighten. I do consider that fact because every Frighten counts.
It's very valuable, and I'm considering it as well. It's part of the reason why on my next turn I'm going to be thinking very, very hard about whether or not I want to use that last redeeming qualities on the cadence in my discard pile, knowing what could potentially happen.
Yeah. Now, if I recall correctly, I believe that. Wait, no. Yeah, this turn you pass, right, Josh? I think so.
So let's see.
This
I
one you
have
do in fact pass.
the option to single,
Mhm.
but singling here, I would need to bring up a blue friend, right? And both of my blue friends cost 3 and are huge value. So basically, there's no real way for me to score a point except by going to Jest. And Jest is basically my big bang attack. If I have a lot of actions, or if I top deck a Discord next turn, because I have 1 still in the deck, I can just put Final Question as the next problem. I can use Jest to do a lot. So it's just not worth it for me to confront any of this. Obviously, figuring out friendship is not worth going to. So there's not really anything for me to do here except
The reason I'm not
potentially
panicking is it's no sure
if
thing
I
you've got
need
it
to
in
do
6,
anything to prepare
which is not a lot.
entry or things like that, just to make sure that I'm holding the tricks that I need to have. But pretty much there's just nothing for me to do right now.
Yeah. Especially because that one other confront would also bump the action tokens gained up to the next threshold. And you know that with the cards that are in play right now, I'm very, very close.
Yes. So 6 actions to fire is possible, but very, very hard. And well, maybe not very, very hard. You've got a
Afford to
ton in
let
your
you
deck,
have
right,
7.
or in your hand right now. But I'm holding a trick.
6 is actually impossible
number.
from this state
Okay.
because
A lot less
there's
valuable
no
than
way
6,
for
let
me
me
to
tell you.
discount Heartfelt Apology, and the
Mhm.
cheapest way I have of getting a cadence out, the
Yeah, is
short
3.
right, exactly. So there's 0 way of me being able to do it
Okay.
for 6.
Yep, that's a
On the
good
heart
point.
of the cards,
Yeah,
I'd sit on my thumbs.
those
That
3
do.
costs are
Okay.
kind of unreplaceable. They're the bare floor if you don't have a cadence out already.
Yeah. But it's kind of shocking. Once he has 7, how many ways he can take that to comboing off.
Oh, 7
Um,
becomes a very different story.
Yeah. So that's another reason why it was definitely not worth it to score the point and accelerate us up to 5 actions a turn. That is relevant, but it's also going to be relevant next turn. If I can't win then, if I try to win and take us to 5 actions and fail to win, then Grandpa's is going to have so many actions, he's going to wipe the floor with me.
Right. I'm feeling relatively confident here because Josh's biggest option for winning is either the Jess clowning around, which I do know he has, but is still kind of a crapshoot. Go. Or
now
an additional
is
night
the
glider.
real moment of truth.
Right.
So
if I recall correctly, this is the turn.
No, it's all been leading up to
And
this moment.
You guys know what those quotes mean.
Dumbest
Let's
moment of
wait
truth
for the
ever.
chat.
Yeah.
We do. This is one of my favorite turns I've played in this game.
It's tough. So, I mean, the issue here is if we think about this, the likelihood that Grandpa's can win next turn. He saved all of his actions. I can hold all of my actions if I need to. Like if I don't think I can do anything, I can hold them. I have a soprano and a food fight. Not soprano, Spitfire and a food fight.
My God, officially.
So that's 2
this
tricks.
might be the dumbest moment of truth ever. Oh my God.
Maybe
It's only fitting.
that'll be enough.
The final finals.
But
Yeah,
I
finals.
mean,
No moments of truth come to either
it's with 10
have to
actions,
be dumb,
he's
huh?
got the vote,
gotta be
so he can just turn off food fight.
So-
That's 1 Spitfire. Preventing
out
Grandpa's from winning next turn is next to
Well,
impossible.
You used a lot of removal.
It's
I sure
technically
did.
possible. So
And
if
you
I
know
have
what? I
no
still wish
path
I
to
had
win,
Oh boy,
I
yeah.
would try it.
Yeah, 'cause the tag
However,
bar, you'd be golden.
I have a path to win. That path
Okay, this is
the Big Bang Attack.
approximately
M confirmed
50% chance to win.
Vegeta.
Okay.
I'm gonna take it.
So
like
I
those odds,
calculate
that's fair.
50%
I
chance
don't
to
like
win.
those odds.
That
All
is
right,
potentially too
Jess is
generous. So all I'm hoping for is a 2-point
Two.
problem. Either
You're a happy
2-point
lady.
problem,
I mean, fish.
and
Happy fish.
I
Which is good. Let me
have
know.
a path to win.
Yeah.
Because there will be technically 5 points on the board.
Now, what
That
I have
requires a triple confront.
Right. And I know that the triple confront is likely going to be dependent on him having a large number of hasty friends in his hand, which means that Soprano
Because
I
my deepest
drew,
hope that you
well,
play Soprano
Bugle
and
is
it
correct,
draws
I
me
would have
Night
rather
Glare.
had it
I
be
know,
a
right?
Miss Main, is still a useful card. But I'd really
just
like
so
2
ridiculous.
Sopranos with his hand being as large as it is right now, knowing that he got back a plushie dash from the Miss Main I played on a
Okay.
previous turn.
I'm gonna let it go.
The problem is the
Okey-dokey.
other
Scott,
Soprano
you might as
is
well wait just
there
like me to see what
in
this problem
play
is.
right now.
I'm gonna enter the score phase.
And we
I'm
talked a
gonna
bit
confront.
about timing,
Oh,
On
I'm not gonna confront. Who knows?
how
I have to think again.
Uh,
We are in the
who
score
gets
phase.
priority after confronting and the triggers go through, and it was
So, yeah, I think it's worth at least a basic explanation here, since we're all going to sit through it together.
Can we pause the video for a moment, Cursor? Is that something we can do?
no.
Sure.
I think so. In the stream, we have to go through the whole discussion, don't we?
I mean, yes.
We don't have it edited out. So I think probably our discussion here is going to take less time than
That's
us
fair.
checking the rules.
That's fair. Go
Okay,
ahead.
fair enough.
So the issue at play is if a 1-point problem shows up, like nobody cares, nothing's going to happen. I have no chance
You're
to
just
win.
banking on that final question. That
So
is-
we really care what
That is
shows up
super
after I
impressive.
do jest.
Once I flip,
and the
who has
question
first priority
is,
window?
who has the
well, you would
very
process your
first
trigger,
priority window?
right?
Because
Yeah.
both of
And
our
then,
tricks are immediate. GP wants to Soprano.
that is,
I want
okay,
to
so you
play
confront, and then
Spitfire,
the
because
trigger is
Spitfire
processed
plus Luna is going
because we
to
go to the
be
end of
enough
that
to
confront step.
confront
And then it should follow
either of my problems, I
normal
think. So it would be
priority order,
final
if I'm
question
correct.
or
That
the
seems-
pink
that seems
one.
right?
I
The
forget
priority
what it
would get
is.
priority first.
So
Yeah.
I just
Judge, does
play
that check
it. I go there immediately before I can
I
get
believe so.
Soprano.
Do you want to pause the game?
Exactly.
Outside, really?
It's kind of important. Let's take a look.
And there's
It's kind of
nothing I can
crazy
do
how
as far as
important it
playing
is.
the Soprano in my hand
I mean,
that's going to
Okay, thank you.
get
not-
me around that.
I'm not especially.
However,
worried, but it's funny because something like this has never
2000
been. So
2000 IQ
like,
puzzle play.
This trigger,
Find
never
a way to
gets-
bypass
It does here.
priority
it
triggers
sort of does.
using the cards that are visible right now.
It doesn't just sort of does.
Yeah, so
It
like
definitely does.
first question,
I
we
mean,
had to
there's a bit
figure
of a
out
question.
who
Right, so
the
the question
priority
is,
window went to,
We replace the
which
problem
was
after
me,
just running
because
who gets priority, right?
I am the
Right, so
turn
question
player.
is,
That's
after
what we're
Jess Kleinfeld's
deciding
trigger
here.
Has been processed.
Who
gets priority window?
But
or who gets priority
it's more
immediately following the
complicated than
processing
that
trigger?
if you
I
are
believe
Galaxy
that
Brain
because the
combo
trigger was put
player.
into pre-priority processing, it has to wait until just before a player would receive priority
And
This is
the player that
Grandpa's
should receive
explaining
priority first
the
should
fact
be
that
the
I will
turn
get the
player.
first priority.
Okay.
Yeah,
In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and say
Bugle's got
with
it.
like
It goes to
95%
turn
certainty
player.
that is what happens.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what else would happen. Yeah.
I see no other reason why it would work any other way. So I'm fine with
So-
that. We'll call it you first.
Yeah.
So
So,
this
we're
is-
both
So
in
now I just
agreement
need to think
on
if we get to
on
that
how
point,
the timing
is
works,
it worth
which means
now that you
that
have to
we
do a
both
blind
understand
so
the
cheese is in the
non-threat
blind.
that Soprano presents
I'm-
if I allow
it's fine.
M to go
We're both in
to
agreement on
confront
how it works.
first.
There's no priority window that ever
Yeah.
works.
So-
like that.
The fun thing here is this was a 3-minute discussion between entering the score
So that's what
phase
to play on.
and the first confront step.
Yes, I just have to think.
It's about 3 minutes to time. Yeah.
That unfortunately is going to be a bit of a theme between the next
You know,
few
I'm surprised how
priority
much, as
windows.
the Hot Wings player, you've made me think. This is just a thinky game.
It really is. All of our matches kind of are, even in the circumstances where you wouldn't think they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinky game is how we described
okay.
it there.
In the last maybe 5 minutes, we've advanced like 2 priority windows.
Oh, does this work?
Yeah, so now we've decided if Grandpa's wants to play a card, he's going to have to do it before I confront. And he is deciding whether or not he
Seriously?
should do that here.
I'm thinking about the Soprano, knowing I can take a plushie dash, but also give him
Okay,
another card.
At the
And
confront
knowing
step
that
for just climbing
I'm
around,
unlike, I need to stop
I'm going
this.
to
Somehow I need
retire
to stop this.
Rarity Soprano to Sora.
It's
I
a
need to
bizarre line
get
of
that
play,
Soprano
Sora.
in
Are
the
you-
discard pile.
I don't even
Because
know
at
how
this
to feel
point in
about
time,
these shenanigans that might be
I'm going to
but,
use one of the
proceed. I can't do
duplicate
anything.
cards in my
I'm going to
hand
play heartfelt apology choosing you.
Somehow,
and
well, I mean,
choose
at this point, it was telegraphed. I haven't
M.
expected it before now.
every
tell you that
single
much.
time that he scores a
Okay,
point for
so
the rest of
after I
this
confront,
turn. I'm going to
the
get to
very
put a
next thing that would
friend
happen
from my discard pile
is
into play.
we'd see
Your
the
trigger.
results
This is
of
a
the thing.
trigger.
Process first.
This
Then
moves
I will process my
faster
trigger.
Then you
than
get a trigger.
priority
Oh, I see. It's just order
being
them. Oh my
taken
God.
to take actions, meaning that Josh M will process his trigger
Unambiguously, you
first
get that trigger
from
in the order you want.
just clowning around.
Then it's a question.
A new problem will interplay. Then my heartfelt will trigger. I will bring
Past
back a
that
Soprano,
one.
and I can
Yes.
potentially take that hasty friend.
Yeah, so he can turn me off before I can play now because it's no longer a question of priority. It's the speed of triggers,
All right,
which are pretty much
Okay,
the
that's
fastest thing.
Now, what
That's
I
hilarious.
probably
It's
should have
spicy.
tried to do here is play the Soprano in
It
my
took until the
hand
finals
to
for
take
me
a
to play
card
heartfelt
anyway,
choosing my opponent.
since we're still at the start of the confront
You're
step
betting
with just clowning around.
that you can
Um,
win.
hoping that he only had 2 hasty
On
friends
8
in hand.
actions next.
Obviously, we know he doesn't. He transformed an honorary yak. He's got the 1 plushie dash, and obviously there's more honorary yaks and Spitfires and another plushie dash in there. So the other Soprano would have done nothing in this case, but it's still a line I'm thinking about.
Yeah, so the complication here is that in order to confront if the next problem, and we've been thinking about this, even though we don't know yet if the next problem is a 1 point or a 2 point.
Like that you're willing to
If
take
the next
that
problem
bet.
is 2 point, I can only confront it with one of my 3-cost friends. Grandpa's doesn't necessarily know that without seeing the problem. I just happen to know that as a fact of the deck.
I mean,
So-
we're familiar enough with each other's decks at this point in time that we know what the power required is going to be. All the 2 bonus problems, with the exception of Surprise Takeoff, are going to require that additional 3 power friend.
Exactly. So the fact that I pulled the Swinging Wonders from Mistmane earlier gives me enough redundancy here to survive 2 Mistmanes
This is one of my favorite.
if I
games.
only need to double confront.
This is-
However, the
So what
issue
I'm trying to
is
calculate here
if I
is if
want
it's worth it to confront nothing.
Yeah,
That
so
I love that line. Do you want to explain
That's
that
the
line?
worst calculation.
what I'm trying to calculate here is if it's worth it to confront nothing. So the thing is, Grandpa's went down to 3 actions here, which means if I don't take us up to 5 actions a turn, he'll only be at 7. And 7 is winning territory, but not running circles around me territory.
And certainly
So-
not when you're holding the Spitfire and the food fight in hand.
Exactly. So if I play a hasty friend so that I don't even confront Jest, then Heartfelt Apology won't get any triggers at all, which is really nice because it means, GP is losing actions and he's not getting new value out of it. I hold the trick. I can probably stop him. I'm confident I could stop him from winning next turn.
I hope you're
The
not
issue
going to
is-
edit any of the silence out of the phone.
I
Oh,
I hope
Here's-
I hope for
here's
this one,
Grandpa's
you
asking
leave
us
the
not to edit out the
bone-crushing
silence, which
of
we
the
obliged.
Incredibly deep think tanking. I'm very glad we
you
didn't.
were I actually have 3 paths, and I really
So
resent
now Grandpa's played in action. We still have not gotten to the confront step. I need to think.
You know, if I had
I'm
one more friend at home,
confident
I'd
that
win
I
it,
could
right?
stop him from confronting.
Maybe.
What
I mean,
I'm trying to
it's
calculate here
complicated, but
is if I
got it.
blow all those actions to fail to confront here and to stop him on his turn, could I actually
We are
win next turn?
Coming up on about
Do I have
2.5
any path
minutes of thinking on
to
this
win the
action.
game?
all right, I'm gonna confront.
And the answer is
Okay.
probably not.
Go
I
ahead.
banked
Let's see what you
2
got.
turns of actions
Two
and
triggers process. This one
in order
first,
to
if I
pull
win,
this
okay.
turn off.
Okay. Now,
And I would be saving only like 1 or 2 actions to come
Right,
into
right.
next turn. So my odds of actually winning by
Right.
confronting 0 are
We're
almost
going to
none.
choose you.
As Beagle
So,
called it in chat,
we're at-
it was indeed the final question.
final
Okay.
question. So at this point,
Now I have to think.
I feel great because if it wasn't final question, but it was the other one, the one where you confront a draw, there are technically 5 points on board. I just need to triple
Yeah, I've been
confront
running
and
all
win
these
the
numbers
face
knowing
off.
my hand, so
Sure.
I accept
Which
that it's gonna take you
is
a bit.
kind of
No,
doable.
I at least want to make numbers here real fast.
Because I have 6 actions, so I can do swinging wonders, or if Soprano hits a swinging wonders, which it probably will,
Almost
I
certainly
do
will.
swinging wonders. Well, first Spitfire to tough question, final question, sorry, and then
Well, I'm going to
swinging
take
wonders to the other
of the
one,
fleshy dashes.
and I can still do a triple face off.
Right.
And you can
However, if he has a second Soprano here that he could play,
All right,
and technically he
then
does,
I have to
then he
choose to do
could
something.
prevent me from
You sure do.
doing the triple confront. However, I don't need the triple confront to actually win. I just need to do a double confront and win the face off. So there are still a number of lines of play here.
The best possible option for me at this point is to try to stop him from winning the face-off, and I have a way to get as much power up as possible, provided that Josh chooses to only go for the double confront, playing one friend, moving over to final question, and calling it good
Okay,
there.
so if I when I spell
That
final
line
question,
of
how many cards do
play
you get? Is it one
is
or
to
two?
retire
It's
Soren
2
to
triggers.
Soren's
One
own
for
ability.
confronting, and then one
Use the
for
first heartfelt trigger
bonus
on
to trigger.
confronting final
And there's
question
definitely no
to bring
priority
a
in this
Soren
trigger,
back
right?
into play.
There is
Use the
definitely no
second
priority
trigger
between
on
those
scoring
every
final
course.
question
Means successive waves
bonus
of free priority
off of
bonus.
heartfelt to bring an Angel Wings back into play. Play the Soprano, knock something out of his hand again, and use the Soprano trigger to move my main up using Bluna's ability, which then also
have
lets
made my
me
decision on
retire
what to play.
the Angel Wings and the Miss Main
Okay.
at home for 4 additional power
Swinging
on Soren.
wonders for 1.
It's a
three.
lot of power.
Moving these 2 clowns up here.
Yeah, the important thing to
Here.
note here is that
Okay.
Grandpa's has
let
the
me
Soprano
confirm.
in hand, so he could play it now, but if he did that, he probably wouldn't have enough actions to like win on his own next turn. Like he might not.
For silly reasons, I actually think I want to do this. Do you
like-
mind the small change?
That's okay. That's fine.
Uh,
You let me do the mysterious disappearance thing.
so
Last
what
game.
I'm doing here is I'm hedging just in
Um,
case I need to triple confront because
Okay.
I
let's
know that
Go ahead.
Grandpa's can
and
use heartfelt apology to do
play.
something, and I'm skeptical of some things. So if I do the triple,
play
then
anything.
I don't actually need to have a
That is the
face off,
question.
and so there's less interaction from
ahead and-
Grandpa's.
Right.
Um,
And the fact that he is capable of doing the triple means that as cool as that line of play with the Soren eating itself and the
Retire
Angel Wings and all that would be, which I'm still going to
Soren
go through
to
the
his
motions on
own
it here,
ability.
it's not actually going to end up mattering. Josh has game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that the triple is on the table is a big
No
deal,
plays.
and that
I'll
is
move to confront my master.
why I was initially confident
confronting
I
final
could win
question
with
is
the
fine.
other problem as well.
I get
However,
one
with
for
the
you.
other problem,
Yep,
I would have
triggers
had to
for me.
actually win
So
the
let's
multi
go,
face off. And as GP is demonstrating, that is not trivial.
Soren.
So very possible
the
I
next.
actually needed this to be a final question.
all at this problem.
The benefit you'd have with surprise takeoff, of course, being that it's only going to get me a single trigger on the heartfelt.
Right.
And
we are
so
now going into a
I
face-off.
would have needed to
Well,
basically
not
just use the
Okay.
Angel Wings, play Soprano for
Just back to
free,
me.
and get my main up there.
I'm
So that'd
going
be
to-
2,
I mean,
4,
it has to be,
6,
because I have
9
no window
power
here as far as I'm
versus your
correct.
3, 6,
Yeah.
7, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah, I'm gonna just
11, 12,
it's totally
13, or
fine.
whatever you were going to be at.
I'm going to.
It wasn't going to be looking great.
myself.
Yeah.
Second my vote to draw a card.
I love it.
All right, cool. Yep, GG.
That was ridiculous.
was great.
Whoa, that game. Could you
So-
combo in 7 actions?
I
in
had
seven
to
Think
Yes.
think amazing.
so hard constantly because the issue is the combo player knows more or less this combo is complicated, but more or less they know exactly how far away they are from winning.
Right.
I was always guessing, which means that how many turns I have left is kind of a question mark. Now, at that point in the game, I knew it was 0 turns left. Like, I was lucky to have gotten that turn even. So it was now or never.
The continuous dry streak of draws in that mid game were definitely painful. And Josh had actually asked in that game, could you go off at 7? And the answer was actually yes, because that draw that I got was the mismain that I needed. It would have been the 7, as I had mentioned earlier, through redeeming qualities, heartfelt, play the vote, bring back Angel Wings, and start from there.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
the fact that Josh banked that turn rather than going for the single is a huge skill factor in playing Hot Wings and other aggro decks that like to focus on double face-offs, and considering whether or not it's worth it to spend your resources, whether it be action tokens or cards in hand or other limited effects, to go for anything less than the most valuable play you could get out of those cards, compared to waiting a single turn to, again, get that greater effect. And he 100% played it correct here.
Frankly, I think looking at that game, the theme that comes out to me most is both of you guys were constantly reevaluating your lines of play. Basically, like at like it is a virtue to not tunnel vision on a strategy and always be willing to rethink what is actually my best line of play given this situation. Which, I mean, perhaps taken to a somewhat absurd degree in that last turn, but still
Yeah.
good play regardless.
Yeah, I think that's a good moral there. Like the question, is it worth it? I'm already at jest. I'm in the score phase. Is it worth it to score 0 points this turn?
Yeah, it is worth noting, as Beagle points out, that was a Hot Wings game that went over an hour.
Yeah. That's the thing, we talked about earlier. This wasn't quite a drag race like these matches almost always are. There was actually a lot more complexity than in a usual game, which is why I brought that deck.
Yep.
I think it was definitely a good choice. The incredible amount of disruption that adding pink presents over going mono blue, coupled with what turned out to be, I think, my downfall that game, which is the card draw and hand refilling off of that one honorary yak, 100%.
Right.
A good choice.
Huge.
In any event, M winning the adventure match brings us, well, that was the same thing that happened last week. So now you just got to win core, Grandpa's, right?
Yep. And this is an unfortunate sequence of events for me. I would have much rather had these two matches reversed based on the results from last week, because I won this match against having a blast, maybe against the odds, by having some spectacular early game problem disruption, but did manage to take it, then lost the second game and went into the third game with the advantage of going first. In this case, I either lose this game and the grand finals is over, or I win this game and we go into the final match, which either becomes a control v control mirror against M's Tempest deck, or becomes Reanimator versus Nurturing Nature, with Nurturing Nature going first.
Right. And we saw that the other way with Reanimator going first. And even though I played kind of very poorly, it was very close to the point where, conceivably it was close to that first player advantage being maybe enough. So consideration like that, especially when the other alternative is like almost a mirror. It's more complex, but almost a mirror. Like both of them, first turn advantage means a lot.
Yeah.
So, Grandpa's, your deck setup for this game is, I believe, exactly the same as it was last week.
Yes, I think the only sideboard that I ended up changing was in the first match that we played. And, this is going to be one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type things. The game plan is the same as it was last time. I've got to try to get Josh off of the starting problem, whose name escapes me right now, despite the fact that I'm running it. Party Science. There it is.
Yep.
And otherwise, just rely on banking and having Gabby's and EEA Council in hand so that I can have absolute protection from any disruption effects and try to close out the game in one fell swoop. My draws last time were not great, but I had a fantastic opener that slowed down Josh enough that I felt okay about this. Now I just have to see if I can do it again.
Simple enough. And, well, yeah, we've already seen it happen once.
Yep. My sideboard is slightly different now that I know that Grandpa's is going for the 1-turn kill. Basically, I figure it's not worth it to try any resource removal. Resource removal is pretty iffy already in this deck. I need a face-off. And combo versus combo, you're not going to see a lot of face-offs. Technically, since we both play so many friends, it's possible. But I decide not worth it. Just keep in as many friends as possible because it's just a little easier to work with friends. So I take out all of my resource removal and both of the blindfolds because I don't want to touch that with the 10-foot pole. There are rules questions. I determined I don't want that card in my deck anymore.
Fair enough. There are no rules questions anymore, for what it's worth.
There sure aren't, but it was still an honorable play anyway, so I appreciate it. There's nothing worse than suddenly determining in the ultimate final match of a long and hard-fought series that, hey, these cards actually don't work the way that everyone thought they did, and they can be abused to a pretty heavy extent. So
yeah, so just get them out of here. The deck is fine on its own.
Indeed. Well, shall we?
Let's do first turn advantage. While I'd rather have it in the next game, at least it's present here. I can hope to get that Discord in my mulligan.
I'll be thinking my pretty little head right off.
Yeah, I'm keeping.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm keeping my pretty little head right off. Okay, sure, Josh. So yeah, I'm keeping mine because actually this is incredibly good. I'll keep anything with entry, just because I don't have a lot of entry. I don't have Discord, but I actually only have 9
with a cheese
pink only entry in the deck. If I don't get my pink entry, I need to use Cluj Town or Pinky Sense to get in other ways. So I'm just totally happy to keep this. Pinky Sense means I can pretty quickly flip.
I will pass back,
which is not super important if Grandpa's holds his entire hand until he goes off. But technically, he might not do that. So I'm not going to worry about flipping immediately, but it's nice to have the option.
Absolutely. My mulligan hand does not, unfortunately, contain the Discord, but it does have several other nice pieces. I've got a Foff for entry that I'll almost certainly discard. I've got Angel Wings, EEA Council, and Gabby, which are 3 of the better cards I could see for moving me towards that Unity 15, and a belly flop so that if I have to, I can flip Skystar and get rid of a key friend in play. I want to try to avoid flipping Skystar, given the hand that I have, because that extra burst of 6 pink Unity that, assuming EEA is in play, cannot be disrupted, can move me right up to the cusp of the 15 that I need. 2, draw.
Yeah, and since I know that, if he did that earlier, I would work very hard to get rid of the seashells. So he just has to keep them safe by keeping them off the board. So I play the Gabby here. Reason being, it starts the draw engine most effectively. But I don't really need the draw engine yet. I would need to start throwing stuff away before I really get draws. And my hand is actually pretty good still. End of your turn.
So
Thank you, Sense again.
I play Gabby
Sorry,
because
Holiday
it's
Spirit.
valuable for me to play one
Ready,
card every
2
turn,
actions.
because that's
Draw.
what Party Science is good for.
Oh,
but
what a draw there.
Okay.
yeah, so at this point, it's actually problematic.
Toss Pinky Sense.
So I've got my 6 cards that I need at least one of them to win the game, which is the 3
Top deck a card.
Living to Laughs or 3 Chrysalises, and I've seen 4 of them now, and I am
for
very
Living Laugh.
liable to throw away any
Wonderful.
cards in my hand.
Yep.
So I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Typically, I don't want to throw away 3 of these this early.
Take my 2 draws. Back to you.
I'm probably comfortable throwing away the other Chrysalis. Like, that's fine. But I would not really like to throw away Chrysalis and Living to Laugh, because if Grandpa's kills my stuff, I'm running very low on actual combo key cards.
It's worth noting with that Living to Laugh draw that I had off the top of the deck, if I can find a rushed makeover to get EEA Council into pink, I'll be at 15 Unity with the flip Skystar. So at this point, I'm feeling like I may not have the Discord, and M's got his board set up, and the Living to Laugh in play is not great, but the game plan is still pretty straightforward. Try to draw a second Gabby, or otherwise get as many cards in my hand as I can on a crucial turn, and just go for it. So thank you, Sen. Put off into play.
Yeah, so from here, it kind of becomes the question of how much do you need to actually combo from hand? Because I'm unlikely to get much more information, like much more board state from you than this. And it's mostly a question of like,
ready?
Can you combo this turn, next turn, 4 turns from now? And the issue is like, there's still a ton of deck in both of our decks. Like, we've only just started. So at this point, I'm pretty confident that you're not going to combo like soon. But it's really hard to say when precisely a combo would happen.
Right.
Yeah, that is one of the benefits of the blue pink Gabby style, where your reach is can be so long that your opponent needs to be scared of it a lot faster than usual.
It is less consistent, but its bursts are much greater.
So for me right now, what I would like is when Grandpa's is just in an obviously holding pattern, I'd like to see a yak probably. What I'm doing here is I'm just...
I guess.
Sure.
I need to start getting rid of my whole hands, or at least much of my hands, so that I can draw quickly, because Grandpa's could win in maybe 3 or 4 turns from here. So I just need to run. And if I'm going to run, I want to not throw away all of my living.
End of turn, I will.
So I just play another.
For Gabby.
Another Living to Laugh does give you more card draw. So like, it's perfectly fine.
The other Living to Laugh applies that pressure so well, in that my methods of disrupting your friends are either going to be to have my own friend to throw at them with a belly flop, or to somehow get enough pink to play the Griselda. But Griselda's only going to be able to dismiss, in this board state, a friend with cost 1 or less. And that's certainly not Living to Laugh.
Yep.
That's right. So, by playing the second Living to Laugh, you've kind of forced me into I can continue to hold as I was doing, but your pace got rapidly accelerated, or I can break my holding pattern, commit a lot of cards and action tokens to disrupt you, and that's really going to set me back.
Right. Exactly. It's almost a dare. And really, I had no desire to dare Grandpa's in order to kill my Living to Laughs. I would have loved to see a parachute. That's why I am playing this Garner, to try to dig out a parachute. But I don't have one yet. So basically, I'm saying to Grandpa's, come at me, kill my combo pieces.
Yep. Now, the change from Party Cannoneer to having a blast means that I don't have to worry about his main on my turn. However, I do still have to be aware that he's got flops and he's got the Griseldas himself. And unfortunately, with the Garner, the Gabby, and the Gilda in play, he's got more than enough Griffins to be able to hit the most key card I would have in my deck, or in play, which is the Gabby.
Yeah.
That means
And-
that I have to rely on EEA Council if I'm going to
Okay,
go
I
off.
will-
There's no other way around it.
Head
Yep.
to
And getting that
turn.
Gilda
I
out
guess nothing
is
happens,
really
so
nice
that's back
because
here.
it means that Griselda, since I also have party science, Griselda
Or you
costs
draw, I'd like to do
1,
something.
same as
Go for it.
belly flop.
That
So
would be
it's
discard
good for
cards
kind
that
of two
make
reasons.
sense.
One, it opens up more things, but
one
two,
draw and then two
it means I'm
others,
not
pinkies.
telegraphing which card I have.
Okay.
Like
Nothing else
it's
for me.
symmetric as far as grandpas can tell. If I'm holding one action, I could play either trick. Now in this case, I have neither, but that's okay. Oh, I just drew into belly flop. So now I'm feeling okay.
What, you weren't feeling okay beforehand with that board state?
We know the board state was going to turn out like this one way or another. But if my board state was like this, 2 turns later, I'd be feeling abysmal.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'm sitting here doing the math and looking at 4 for EEA Council, 2 for Angel Wings, 1 for a Gabby. That's going to bring me up to 7, plus 3 for another Gabby brings me up to 10, plus a combination of Rushed Makeover and Living to Laugh brings me up to 13. And that's great. That is all the unity. Oh, plus 2 to flip my main is 15. So 15 action tokens and guaranteed unity, guaranteed protection can definitely go off. Except that is so many cards from my hand that I would be left with almost nothing that I'd actually be drawing off of the Gabbies.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, last turn or last game we played, I had 21 action tokens when I went to go off.
It was something in that area, yeah.
Right.
End of turn. Discard.
Now that single Gabby that Bugle points out in chat for 11 cards this turn
Draw.
would be pretty nice. I
Okay.
definitely
Continue
don't want to
to
ditch
hand
the
limit.
things I have in my hand right now, though.
Discarding.
And he's talking about getting some of that useful stuff into play. Josh having 1 action token left is so disruptive for the exact reasons he talked about. The belly flops, the Griselda. I don't know what he could have, but either one of those are good.
Now, for
Yeah,
what
at
it's,
this
Discard another
point,
Spitfire.
they can both pretty much do whatever they want because I have stuff to kill and I have so many Gabby or Griffins.
for what it's worth,
Discard Spitfire.
GP, you thought for a long time on discarding that second Spitfire,
Okay.
which
I did.
I remember thinking at the time, like, if discarding the
Alright,
first Spitfire was so easy, then why is it a choice to
Your end
discard
of
the second
turn.
one?
I will use Pinky Sense.
Part of the reason is having another Spitfire in hand gives me another method of finding
Ready,
good
2
unity
actions, draw a
if I
card.
don't find the Rush Makeover for the
Gets 2
EEA
triggers.
Council, which I haven't found yet. And that other Spitfire gets that much more valuable having 1 already in the discard pile, making it 4 power for 3 action tokens instead of just 3 for 3.
Good point. The experience, yeah. People forget that.
Okay, so at this point on my side of the board, this is where my options open up dramatically, but I really don't have that much more to do. So it's almost, unless I was up against a deck where I really needed to play more friends, it's almost coast until I win.
So I'll do a free
So
Gilda.
I could play a Gilda here for free, right? Because I have
Then
2 cost reduction for a pink Griffin.
I'll use Pinky Sense.
So I might as well. But really, I have no need to
deck.
play that Gilda.
It gets more power in play, and hey, now your Griselda's free on my turn, so
Exactly.
The
It's
irresponsible.
totally fine.
Discard 6
And
randomly.
so what we see I did there is I saved the yak and I threw away
You don't have 6 cards in
everything
deck.
else with
Then
my
I will
pinky
proceed
main
to my end of turn.
because she can just throw away my whole
Again,
hand
trigger.
even though it doesn't dismiss anything. Super powerful.
Oh,
So from there, I
um,
draw 4, one of which was the yak that I saved purposefully.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay. Back to you.
And then on Grandpa's turn, I can play the yak. The reason I wait
End of
for
your turn.
Grandpa's
Pinky
turn
Sense.
is I get
Discard.
1 action advantage, and usually Grandpa's would draw, and then I get to draw up to 9 cards.
I
However,
would like
Grandpa's
to play a
here
yak.
Go for
used Pinky Sense to do a discard,
One.
so I don't get
Yeah,
that
home,
extra advantage,
drawing
but that's not a big
5.
deal.
specifically the reason I did that was
Yeah.
the yak.
We'll then follow
Yeah.
it up with
Now,
Pinky Sense into a parachute.
we talked about this
Okay.
at some point outside of these games, but an alternative line of play for me in this game at the beginning would have been to go ahead and flip Skystar early and try to use those seashell tokens to, just treat them as fodder, but use them early to get 2 key confronts in at Party Science to have us gain 3 action tokens per turn instead of 2 per turn. That extra action token is much more valuable to me than it is for Josh, because Josh can meet his Unity requirements so easily and doesn't have to worry about these big burst turns with 3-cost friends or 4-cost friends or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah,
A
so
little more.
if we saw how many actions I spent on my last turn, it was 0 and then 1 action on Grandpa's turn. So the fact that we are gaining very few actions at this point of the game, now that I'm in the coasting phase, I actually don't spend any actions to do any of my key events or like my key actions, except for playing the event. It's not let's get this party started. It's the new one.
I know this one.
Yeah, I know this one, which I didn't know. And then playing the yak. Those are the only things I do. So really the number of actions I have is only relevant for how many tricks I hold at the end of my turn, which barely even matters because as long as I hold 1 trick, Grandpa's is going to want to play EEA Council. So actions don't matter to me. But like GP said earlier, he had like 20 actions when he comfortably won the last game. So like, something like 16 would probably be enough to, do it fairly safely at a point like this. But we're gaining 2 actions a turn. Like, now that Grandpa's is at 7 here, like, it's going to take a while to get to a really comfortable number of actions. 2 actions a turn is a big problem for him.
Yeah. At this point, I was really hoping to find additional Angel Wings so I could meet the Unity requirement a little bit cheaper. Golden Parachute, I think I've got 1 in the discard pile, which is nice, but the big thing would have been another Gabby. I would have gone for a Gabby play if there were 2 of them in play with a Golden Parachute. I may not have had the protection of EEA Council, but I was almost guaranteed to get at least 1 trigger.
Yes, that's pretty good. And this turn, I would have been able to do very little to stop that. Not nothing, but it would have been very hard. No.
Especially since last turn we saw that you discarded 2 of your belly flops with Pinky.
Exactly. Because typically what I would need to do here is I played the 1 trick I'm holding to get through the first parachute, and then I need to play cards in order to draw into my next trick. The issue is I don't have enough actions to yak and then play a trick. So if you did get that second Gabby, this would be a pretty good turn. Also, really important is how many cards are in GP's hand when he goes off. And since he spent this turn drawing, if he drew into the Gabby this turn, he would have enough cards to almost certainly combo out.
Yeah. The Giovanna here naming pink was not only useful in reducing the amount I needed and also helping me try to get to the point where I could be confronting Party Science to get us to 3 action tokens a turn, but is also a Griffin, allowing me to banish the Stop Fighting from my discard pile and frighten 1 of his Living to Laughs. I hold another one in my hand. It's questionable if I should have discarded that first one versus double dipping on each of them, knowing that the last Living to Laugh is in the discard pile already. But a lot of this just comes down to fatigue in this game as well, and not being able to knock that Party Science out of the way at the beginning really put me in a bad place.
Yeah, and at this point, the next question after you stop me gets harder and harder to predict. Like, if you can stop me from winning for like 2 or 3 turns with good
5 turns. I don't
frighten
really care about
calls,
these, but
like how many turns from there do you actually need to win? And on 2 actions, like it's tough. It's a complicated set of questions.
Sure. Yep.
But yeah, so technically I could have tried to win this turn, and so I do a Garner for free at the end of the turn just to look at the first few cards.
Yes, then we do have face off.
I don't care about very much, but
somehow I forgot.
I might as well.
My top load was meaningless.
1, 2, 3, 4,
The
5,
reason
6 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
mostly
7, 8,
that I'm doing this is because this makes it harder for Grandpa's to confront with Gabby, because Gabby needs a confront. So now he would have to play new friends to a problem.
Okay.
He may have had to do that
Um,
anyway, but the
ready
garner was
is
free, so
2
I just
actions.
decided to go for it.
Just 1 draw.
So Bugle, before that heavy counterplay from Grandpa's, predicted that I could win this turn here. With the counterplay, like without the counterplay, I think I certainly
Do
could have won, but there's a question still of if it was worth
One.
it to try.
Discord
Because
fluff call.
Sure.
now that I have seen Grandpa's play some friends, I can go on the attack and I can say, I'm going
Play
to
this.
take out
Pinky
these
sense.
cards.
what?
It's going to be
Sorry?
more
Pinky sense
efficient
combo.
for me to
Pinky sense.
kill your stuff than you to play it. So even if I could maybe win if Grandpa's isn't holding just the perfect trick, I can do this, slow Grandpa's down, slow myself down, and then win more confidently in a bit. So I'm just trying to
Confirm Discord's
put up
triggered.
as many barriers as possible. We see
Okay,
I put
yes.
down that Discord.
Thank you.
For
It's not
one
first choice,
action
but very
because
unlikely to matter.
if Grandpa's doesn't have EEA Council, I can use the Discord to replace a problem, which would prevent Gabby from confronting it, which means that he would have to go to my problem.
Which is 1 power more. And why not go for every bit you can?
Exactly. So really small things.
Yeah, Bugle. Discord is definitely not a May. I looked it up during the game.
I'm in excess of my hand limit.
Oh, yeah.
Discord motivational speech.
The
Okay.
Gallus in play right now is useful to me for that exact reason that
Change
Josh just
everything
mentioned,
to B.
because I
I
can
will.
rely on discarding a card with Pinky Sense to move it for free, which will get me the additional extra power that I would need at Party Science to still do the 3 and 3 confront, or in this case, even doing a
I'm gonna spend 1
Griselda and a
for
Gabby,
Griselda.
which would be enough.
targeting Giovanna.
So yeah, I just decided to play my Griselda because I've got these Gildos that are giving me free actions if I decide to play a Griffin.
Thinking.
So even if Grandpa's uses the parachute, burning a parachute is fine. That's one of the big kind of secret sauce benefits in this matchup is since I'm slow and steady, I'm very likely to see all of my parachutes. But Grandpa's, it's possible for me to go through all of the parachutes that he happened to see before he combos off.
Yep. And I do decide to use the parachute here, not necessarily because the unity of Giovanna is so good, although that is beneficial, but because Giovanna is another Griffin in play, and I'd really like Griselda to be able to hit a Living to Laugh.
Yeah, that's a
Okay,
big
then
deal.
I will use Pinky Sense, put something on top of my deck.
Okay.
Then I'll head
So
to
I'm
my
holding that
core
Living to
phase.
Laugh because
Start with
obviously
exhaust
at this
Pinky.
point, I feel
Discard
confident
2
that I
random.
could
Just gonna
win
shuffle and deal off the top.
faster than Grandpa's in the absence of counterplay. And I just need to make sure that whatever counterplay
I'll
Grandpa's
check and see
has,
Giovanna.
it doesn't completely kneecap me. So even though that puts an
I'm
extra
going to
card in my
use
deck,
Pinky
I
Sense.
don't want to risk
Okay.
throwing her away.
Discard Clue-Stand Citizen.
Okay.
Head to end of turn. I don't actually know if Gabby or Home Limit triggers first.
Gabby will trigger first.
I'll take my 2 Gabby draws.
At this point, I've got a whole hand to draw
5 of
tech,
these things.
which is
Want these
pretty
3, so I
nice.
can
I'm not
put 2
sure
more. I'll place a
exactly
garner.
how many cards are left in my deck.
Um,
Probably it's
back to you.
It's not that
6.
many. It's less than 10, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you hadn't put the 3rd Living to Laugh in your discard pile early. For some reason, I thought you had. I guess you just held on to it. You probably put it back on top of your deck.
Yeah, I think I've thrown away my 3 Vicious Vengeances already, but none of my Living to Laughs.
Stolen talent, but I know what you mean.
Oh my goodness. That's not even a friend. Vicious Vengeance. That's
It's the epic
Epic.
troublemaker. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. I
Now I've
forgive
got-
myself.
I've got the second Gabby here, and that's not terrible. I can certainly go deep on confronting Party Science with 2 Gabbies and exhausting Pinky Sense to discard something from my hand to move the Gallus. Boy, it gets really hard to talk about Griffin names. They are very, they're very challenging.
And at this point, I'm not holding any tricks. I would need to dig for tricks, which I obviously can do.
Thinking.
I can play a yak for 1 in order to draw up. But currently, I don't have any. So if Grandpa's does something really sneaky here, I can't yet stop him.
Right. And I'm trying to remember, I think there is still one stop fighting in my discard pile.
There is, yes, the one that you
Yeah.
played but haven't triggered yet.
Right.
Oh, I'm real dumb. I'm gonna do a thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so
I'm
typically,
gonna play a yak.
if I were to play a yak
Sure.
at start of my opponent's next
That'll allow
turn,
me
I would have
6.
decided to do
Yep.
this much earlier and like
Fine
warned
number.
them.
Doesn't cause.
But
the
while
AF to be
Grandpa's
anything.
was thinking, I was thinking, and I determined, oh, you know what? It's worth it to do this. So at this point, there are 2 cards left in my deck. I don't know that we've seen that fact, but that's why I chose to do the yak here. So I draw 1 at start of turn, and then immediately there's the risk of if I play a Living to Laugh, Grandpa's knows that my next priority window is the end of the game. So he has to respond immediately every time, which kind of just keeps the ball in my court. Like I'm able to determine the flow of the game.
Yeah, at this point, I have effectively lost. Well, I lost quite some time ago.
Just hard to see because it's a very complicated setup. Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think both of these
Sure.
games have kind of showed us
End of turn.
the value of you don't need to be playing a
Actually.
control deck in order to, or playing a true like hard troublemaker, super removal control
Back
deck
up.
in
Oh, yeah,
order
of course.
for
I'm gonna
every
play
bit of disruption
makes sense.
you have,
Okay,
every
cool.
little
Okay.
incremental
Okay.
tax
My
on
card's
your
giving me
opponent's
8. Okay.
strategy to matter.
All right.
Yeah.
Do I want to?
This deck definitely
Yeah,
is
I'll
a
do things
control
at the
combo
turn.
deck, but
Parachute.
Luna
For
Hot
sure.
Wings is not. But
2
all of
actions,
those pieces of
unreadies,
disruption
a
added
single
up to the point where there
stupefying
were several
draw.
turns where I was 1 action token shy of being able to go off. This one just happened to
Yeah, I will head
let
to
you
my
run away
main
quite a bit
phase.
more, not being able to
I think
deal
there's only
with
one line of play.
the
Very silly.
party science and
I
not
will
choosing to go for
briefly
the
unthreaten
early
Living
confronts to
Laugh.
get those action tokens
I'm going
flowing.
to play
Yeah.
Zelda
So at this point,
for
right,
3.
I do the one thing. I don't need to do
attempt
any
to
other setup.
dismiss
It's
your
just
Discord
this,
best laid
but
plans.
Grandpa's is holding a trick,
I'll
so
parachute.
I cannot
Okay,
win
and
this
I'm gonna
turn.
finish the stop fighting to frighten the living to laugh.
However,
Ah.
it cost Grandpa's more actions than he gains in a turn, which
Okay.
means like obviously this is kind of a
Losing
battle that can only
proposition.
go on so long.
Right.
I am going to.
Yeah, Josh is in the Thanos seat here for sure.
Exhaust. Thinky sense.
Unless
Discard
I do
deck.
something very silly, it's
Um,
there's no way. However, I do have to be
Sandglass.
careful.
Well, so
I
kept my
need to
code
make
base.
sure that I'm keeping cards in my
I'm
deck
going to
so
randomly
that when I
discard, I think just 1.
have all the unity and I have my pinky, I can actually draw a card because you need there to be a card to
that's 1.
draw
That'll
and it
hit
needs to be your
Gallus.
last card.
I believe no
So
other triggers.
He
more than
stopped me
4
from
and
winning,
confronting
so
effect.
I say,
Okay.
hey, I'm going to be mean
Draw.
to you. I'm going to kill more of your stuff. That's what you get.
Because
for
why
stopping me.
because why not bad manner? Well, you're on top, right?
Exactly.
I respect that play.
That
You should know your opponent if you're going to do that, which we do in this case, so no one's going to take it personally. But yeah, absolutely. Why not rub their nose in it a little bit?
the issue is like I'm comfortable with your deck, but I can't say with 100% confidence that there's no way you could win because like sometimes you do nonsense. So
There
I
are
just-
there are usually lines of nonsense in most of the decks I'll play.
so
That's fair.
I can't leave any value on the table. I try not to be mean about it, but I try to, I got to make sure I win the game. But then, yeah, paying to draw here is basically an admission of, let's see where the cards I needed were.
Now, with 2 belly flops, is it possible to prevent?
Thinking.
No, he still has all the parachutes. In his hand.
Yes, parachutes, yes.
Yeah, I think I used 1 last turn, but the other 2 are still there.
Right. So, yeah, this should be...
Yeah, this will be wrapping up here in a moment. It is interesting to think about how each of these decks would end up changing now that Fond Memories has been released, and apart from Living to Laugh now being still partying and only giving point
Okay,
acceleration
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than just winning the
Might as
game
well.
on the
Spell
spot,
Parachute.
the other tools that each deck might
Golden
find it
Talent and Belly Flop.
useful to include.
Right. Some new Griffin synergy for sure.
There is definitely new Griffin synergy to push the aggro element
gotcha.
in a larger direction. If I did decide I wanted to go for more of a one-turn kill, as expensive as it could be, there's also things like Wrath of Gilda to keep the opposing board clear long enough.
Yeah, that's gonna be hyper meaningful.
Yeah, non-option
And
We can be
does
done.
potentially beg the question of if
Unfrightened draw.
mono remains
How close,
viable.
were you before?
I think mono still has a very good strategy. It is just going to need to be very, very protective of its Living to Laughs and not discard them at any opportunity if it wants to go for the one-turn kill, or it needs to push up to problems a little earlier, which obviously benefits opposing decks a bit more. But you also get the same access that I would to a card like Vinyl, who can just reshuffle a discard pile back in. So
Right. So all is not lost, though it's not, necessarily what you want to do. It's a way to salvage things.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Well, congratulations, sir.
yes, during that conversation, there was the official GG. Congratulations, M. You are
Thank you.
the Invitational champion this year. And congratulations, Grandpa's on the second place.
Thank you.
Quite a wild tournament. Very glad to have the best of three. Well, the last two matches that I had here, because most of the rest of the tournament was just good luck and good decks and not a lot of playing. So this was just fantastic that we got, absolutely evenly matched decks coming here at this final. I think that the tournament was good at picking out the best stuff, and we really got to see it work, and all of the shenanigans and nonsense that the best decks are capable of doing in this current meta.
I would have to say that first game in this match, this final match that we played, is the most indicative of what the tournament is trying to do, as Cursed has described it to its participants, of not only find the best deck builder, but also find the best players as well. Because each of our decks were only capable of pulling off some of those tricks because of the cards we chose to include, which may not have been immediately obvious. And yet it still required seeing all of those lines of play and adjusting our strategy on the fly, sometimes within a single priority window. And I love it. I love games like that. I love the interaction and trying to get inside your opponent's head and trying to, go 2 levels deeper or 3 levels deeper, and it's just really, really fun.
Yeah, I will absolutely admit that, like, as that score phase was going on, I was sitting here on the side thinking, like, oh, M's got it for sure. And then you find the Heartfelt Apology play, and I'm like, oh my goodness, does he have it? He might. It was a roller coaster return for sure.
Yeah.
So again,
for us as well.
Oh yeah, it was. We were sweating for sure. I will definitely look forward to facing you. Well, hopefully facing you at some point in the Invitational next year.
Right.
Yeah. The Invitational next year. It'll happen. Well, at least that's certainly the plan for it to happen.
It will happen. You heard it here first.
And the race for it starts. Well, I guess it starts at Vancouver actually in like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep, time to go break Adventure wide open.
Yes, we've gotten a good idea of the meta. We've gotten a lot of adventure gameplay that everybody can study in this tournament.
Is it going to be Adventure up there?
It is going to be Adventure. Well, actually, we can do a shameless plug here, and we'll also do a shameless plug tomorrow. I love shameless plugs. We'll do an Adventure tournament as the main constructed tournament for that convention. And we are also going to do a cube tournament using Paige's hopefully updated cube, including Fond Memories cards, if we can obtain those by, the time the con starts.
Well, that does sound pretty interesting.
Bugle says Invitationals next year will be Odyssey's Block Popper and Leader's Block Opulence. I would like to take this opportunity to announce my retirement from the CCG.
For what it's worth, Adventure was a huge success this year. I think it was a new
100%.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Strongly agree.
Yeah, it was well, for many people except for Smithers, it was basically a new format. But yeah, it brought us some excellent games, brought us some really interesting deck building, and well, now it's a real format, basically.
Helped inform a lot of bands.
Yes, it certainly did. And I think that both Adventure and Core are going to end up better as a result of that. Now it's just a matter of if the combination of the curated ban list plus the introduction of a new set is going to push any particular thing too far. And
Right.
if anyone is familiar with, the idea of paradigm shifts and, that pendulum that swings back and forth, it certainly swung way hard in the direction of control at the beginning. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
We'll see.
But yeah, that is the Invitational 2021. Thank you, everybody who stuck with us all the way. If you missed anything, I actually go find the YouTube link here. It is over on our YouTube, along with this match coming this Monday. There it is. And I'll give you one more chance, Grandpa's. CCG content is not finished this weekend.
CCG content is indeed not finished this weekend. We are gearing up for an annual tradition which everyone loves. Everyone. No one dislikes this. It's certainly not a complete bear on all of us. It's Slugfest time! Woo! So you're going to want to head over to Commentators Magic's Twitch channel tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Pacific, where we are going to have some special guests as well that will be meticulously talking about all of the cards in this set. I did that just for you.
Nice. It's not me, by the way, for what it's worth.
No, I know. But now the viewers do as well. But we will be reviewing the cards on the basis of individual game impact. Then, 2 weeks later...
Yeah, then 2 weeks later, Hithrock and I will be back on this channel. It'll be at our usual stream time of 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And we shall be reviewing the cards in terms of what we think the meta is going to look like, how much play they're going to receive in the sort of set period of 2022, which is, well, it's kind of a bit of a crapshoot all the time, generally speaking. But we'll both have opinions, for sure.
Meanwhile, Josh will sit back, watch, take both things into account, and then call us completely wrong and come up with a new meta for the third year in a row.
Yeah, break the meta.
Go for it.
Well, anyway, yeah. Want to thank you both once again for coming on here.
Thank you so much for a fantastic tournament.
Yeah, thank you for having us and inviting us to play.
I think that takes us to the end of the broadcast tonight. Then, for the last time for Meticulous for the Invitational 2021, I've been Cursor Chords.
Grandpa's
Eminently sensible.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.